little bit.
Shrinking away.
Hey, it's been, I think about it, fucking close to a year since we done one of these. And we figured we're not around each other quite as often as we used to be, but since we are this week, we figured we'd get together and shoot one of these. By massive demand, millions of emails, tens of thousands of emails to get a Barbarian Brothers video going on again. Also, probably a lot of you guys haven't been seeing us very much on social media. Some of you are probably very excited about that. But we didn't block you.
Some of you found a way, so we're back.
Some of you we may have blocked, but we didn't block anybody. We just got deplatformed. So a lot of you guys know, but I'm still getting emails from people who are like, "Did you block me on Facebook, bro?" No, Facebook blocked us. We got the permaban from Facebook, Instagram, VK, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App.
Banned for life.
Yeah, like pretty much in the same 3 days, I think, just about every member of the Wolves and every kind of side project, almost everybody caught it in the same week. And then a bunch of us caught payment processing platforms, whichever ones we still had available to us, since we've been banned from most of those back in like January.
And what it really seemed like, kind of the process of that was, is it really looked like, all these people, all these systems are together, and so what it seemed like the thread was that they used,
it's like there's a
groups,
shadowy international cabal.
Right. They used not necessarily who we were and who they were banning, as far as
a lot of people
Facebook pages, but then as far as it had to do with us, it seemed like groups that we were a part of, or messenger
chats
groups that we were a part of. Anybody who was linked in with those kind of got
and then, but I mean, a ton of people, like I know a bunch of the different groups on the right and everything like that. I know the Proud Boys and like American Guard and a bunch of these other right groups. But the funny thing is one of the I guess extreme left commie kind of sites or whatever that I frequent from time to time just to see what's going on with those guys. They said that a ton of them got banned too. So it was really funny to watch the dichotomy, because all the guys on the right were like, "We've all been banned and like the left is running the show." And then like all these like really extreme leftist guys, like Black Bloc dudes, are screaming the same thing. So it's always very funny for them to be like, Facebook is it's just a last bastion of the extreme right, and so is Twitter and all this. And you're like, that's not been the experience of us as kind of like mid-wing extremists, or whatever you want to call the Wolves. But definitely a lot of people have been banned, and it's pretty funny to watch what the fallout of that has been. Obviously, this has been a fucking insane year, really fun one for us, just watching and being a part of a lot of different stuff. But with COVID, with the mostly peaceful riots and stuff that have been going on around the United States. And then now we got a new resurgence of COVID yesterday, super COVID, super virus. It's 7,000% more transmittable.
The funny thing about that is it's something that nobody predicted.
No one thought that this would ever.
It's a real shocker. It kind of came out of
this COVID worse than the other COVID. Yeah. Some senator or something, he just died. He was like 41 years old. A lot of scare stories out there about this. New lockdowns probably going to be going into effect. I would say 2021 is going to look a lot like 2020 at this point. The vaccines, good news. They only sometimes cause palsy, which is great. And then also, one shot may not totally do the trick, but it seems 2 or 3 shots of this stuff are really helping prevent spread.
It's like alcohol.
It's like one shot didn't get me there. 2 or 3 shots, I'll fucking go home with this.
But I think that we can all just kind of find a little bit of confidence in it when you look at the fact that, one, it's the first of its kind, in the sense that it's built a slightly different way than the other vaccines have. And first of its kind is always usually the best.
I like the untested
and then
stuff.
Second of all, like they were able to produce it. I think I read that the fastest vaccination prior to this took 4 years.
And now
they've really streamlined the process. So
you can trust that.
There can now be more diseases that come out that they may even be able to shrink that down to over the next couple of years. Every time something comes out,
I just can't wait for the next line of it's just, because at first it was like, yo, I love at Sheets. You go to Sheets and it's like, yo, dog, wear a mask. We're speaking to you in the vernacular of your generation, dog. And then it's like, it's just a mask. It's just social distancing. It's just for a little while. It's just a month. It's just. Well, I'm waiting for the next one where it's like, yo, dog, it's just Bell's palsy. What are you, a pussy or something?
Well, you don't want that, so you're gonna kill me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. The nice thing is that I can say this year, I don't want to say an exact number because I don't want to sound self-aggrandizing, but I have saved, let's just say it, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of lives in that stretch when you go into a restaurant and you have to have your mask on, from right there to 2 feet away when you get to take it off because you can have a drink or whatever. I've saved hundreds of thousands of lives. I feel pretty good about that.
We've also established that COVID is very predatorial. So we realized that you can go out and drink till 10, but after 10, everything gets shut down. Because if you get too drunk and you're stumbling home in an alley after 10 o'clock, that shit's gonna find you and it's gonna get you.
COVID is like a rapey bro. It seems to only hang out in gyms, bars after 10 p.m. And very few other places. You gotta watch out for it. You gotta keep your head down. But in the meantime, we've been up to a lot of shit this year. Those of you guys who follow me on my other platforms, we've been trying to keep our heads up, and like I said, it's one of those things where, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, cool, no big deal. You have your social media blasted or whatever, but we've done really well with social media for a long time, and also it's one of the ways that we network with people and are able to put together events. It's been really helpful as far as the Operation Werewolf thing had gone and everything like that. So dealing with a shutdown of Signal has been a bit of a challenge, but obviously those are all their toys, so you can't get mad when the bitch kid decides that he doesn't like the way that you're playing and he takes his toys and he goes home. Those were always his toys. And so if you guys can go down here below the video, and we've got a bunch of links there of where you can follow the projects that we've been putting together.
Where you can find our next.
where you can find our next shit that'll get doxed or shut down or whatever. But we keep getting, we just got there's a hilarious article that was put out. You guys can check it out if you want to. I'm not going to include the link, but it's one of the newer ones. It's called Total Life Reform, which is pretty funny. And they go through the thing, they call us MLM guys, pyramid scheme and stuff like this. And I was like, fuck, man, if I was running a real pyramid scheme, I would have made so much more fucking money. I was reading it and was like, fuck, some of this is a pretty good idea. But
look, we've stopped the Operation Werewolf thing, but what you can do is you can buy 25 t-shirts from me.
You're my downline. Yeah, see, if I had a downline, I would have made a grip.
That was one of the, could have been a downline on that.
But other shit, we're still running the gym here. And Matt just got his purple belt, a couple months ago?
Yeah, I think I was still on Instagram for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got it in about halfway through the year.
And
July, I think.
And then 8 days after he got his purple belt, he won Pan Ams in his division at purple.
Yeah.
So you had done, I'm trying to think the last major competition that you had done before Pans. Because COVID fucked everything up for that too.
Yeah, because Pans was supposed to happen in March. In fact, this year I was supposed to, was going to be my second year shot at Pans and Worlds as a blue belt.
Right.
And then Pans was supposed to take place in March.
Yeah.
And then that got shut down. There were pretty much no competitions before that. So I think the last competition that I did might have actually been Master Worlds as a blue belt in late 2019. No, I think I did some other competitions.
And how did you place there?
Fourth as a blue belt.
But then so came in, got his purple, and then it was 8 days after you got your purple belts.
No, it was actually a couple months.
Couple months. And then, walked through the division at Pans. I was able to go down there, which was awesome. And you've got all that kind of anxiety watching somebody else. And I watched his first match and his second match, and then I was kind of like, oh, this looks like it's a done deal.
Yeah.
Walked through that. Was that a bigger deal than, just because you had just got your purple, there's a higher level of competition?
I think the biggest thing that happened is I almost changed my entire mindset. As a blue belt, I knew that I was world class, and I
Fourth
trained
in
like
the
it.
world class.
I just trained crazy, and I put a shitload of pressure on myself every competition.
Yeah.
And I double golded a lot. I took medals in every absolute
What's your tournament record right now? It's like 100 and something and 5.
It's a little bit more than that. It's somewhere right around 100, I think, right now. And I think from white belt to blue belt, I've lost no more than like 9 matches. I'm not in double digits as far as losses, and most of those, over half of them are like absolute classes where I took silver or bronze, and in my weight class I only lost 2 or 3 times, a handful of times.
So you changed your mindset. What was the switch going in competing as purple?
Yeah, I had this whole year in my mind that this was going to be my blue belt year to shine. And then, so when I got bumped up, it was one of those things where I didn't feel like I could really expect to walk out as a fresh purple and compete at the same level that I was competing at. So I kind of felt like I was going to have, this first year of getting used to it, feeling what the competition was like. You go up a belt level and you're going to see new moves with more regularity that maybe you didn't have to deal with early on. And I just at first felt like I just was going to have a rough year.
Yeah.
And then, so I just kind of thought about going out there and first just proving that I could hang. And that was my only goal, was just to go out there. If somebody did beat me, I wanted them to know that they'd been in a serious grappling match.
Yeah.
And if I could pick up a couple of wins at the same time, then I'd be happy. And then kind of the day before the competition, I was talking with my coach, and he was, telling me some things, and I just thought, really, as much as I respect all of my other, my competition and everything, I was like, I'm going to go out there and act like I'm the best. I'm just going to lay it on the line.
Yeah.
I'm going to act like my game plan is going to beat theirs, and I'm just going to almost disrespect the fact that like they probably have some more time in, and that I should be a little bit more wary.
But just go
and I just
smash.
went in and went to smash, and walked through. I don't think I got a point scored against me. And
it was pretty decisive, but and it was cool watching that because I've rolled with you a bunch of times, and obviously the skill level there is large. It's a big skill level difference, but being able to come in and have you be able to watch you compete at that level and take gold at a thing like Pan Am's or whatever, it kind of opens up the possibility realm in your own brain. And then Matt encouraged me to compete, which was my first competition in like 2 years, I think. I think I've been off the mats for, I don't know, something like 6-8 months. It was one of those ones where I think between 30 and 36, I basically injured every single part of my body. But I got back on the mats, and then I went down and competed in the Atlanta Open, and got bronze in the Atlanta Open in my division. Got to put a guy to sleep in a competition.
It always feels like a gold medal when you do it.
That felt good. And then the guy that I lost to, you always see this. It's like, but the guy I lost to, he walked the division, but the guy I lost to walked through the division, got his purple belt on the podium, and I was 2 points to 2 points with him right until the last 18 seconds of the match, 36 seconds of the match, and he got a sweep. So I was competitive, and that felt good, to be able to come out of that competition and be like, well, I was competitive with a guy who got his purple on the podium and who won the whole thing, the division or whatever. So I got back out there, and then it was one of those conversations that Matt and I had started having where it was like, why compete at all? What's the value in competing? And, we had a couple of cool conversations about that, and Matt's putting together something that I'm helping him out with, which is kind of like a little guide, sort of like a white and blue belts guide to competing. There's a lot of stuff, certainly if you've never competed in like the IBJJF before or anything like that, where when you get to a competition, it can be a little bit disorienting, a little confusing, so fucking disorienting and confusing, in fact, that I missed fucking my opportunity to compete at Worlds a couple weeks ago. But, and that there's a lot of different stuff where you're like, what should I have with me? What do I need to have? When do I need to weigh in? When do I need to be in my gi? What do I need to pay attention to? And then also just the mindset and where you maybe should be at with your game or look to be at with your game. But the really big question that we talked about was why compete at all? Right. And so like, what are your big, like your main 3 reasons for competing?
Number one,
what do you think it changes?
Right. So number one of the biggest things that will change if you decide to compete, especially,
and this is like in any sport,
right?
Really,
especially as a white belt or a blue belt, is that it will very much affect your ranking system, right? So if you have a white belt or you start competing or you start learning jiu-jitsu and you're at your gym and you have a white belt, a lot of times that your gym will have an idea of what it takes to get a blue belt. And it might be a list of moves that you can perform correctly. It may be an amount of hours that you've logged training.
Being able to pick up a fiery thing with your forearms.
Exactly. Trimming bonsais, waxing cars.
Very important.
A broad range of things that may be required of you as a white belt. If you choose to compete, all of these things generally still stand, but usually you have to start winning at competitions. It's not that it's necessary, because getting out there and competing, some people compete well, some people don't. The desire will definitely be noticed by your
But what do you mean when you say ranking? Your ranking changes.
So the one guy just might log his hours
Right.
and do that, and you may reach those hours a lot earlier than him because you're there 4 or 5 days a week or twice a day.
But if he's competing and doing well,
but if you're competing and doing well, if you go in there and win worlds at a certain belt, chances are you've proved that you're the best in the world at that belt in that bracket, and you're more liable to get your belt. Right. If you're losing in competition,
so advancement and progression, in other words, is one reason. In other words, you're going to advance faster if you do well in competition at any belt level.
It can also slow your advancement at some levels, because the IBJJF, if that's one of the ones that you want to compete in, they essentially require you to compete at a belt level for 2 years.
2 years.
It takes a lot of sit downs with the Brazilian mafia to be able to move up. And sometimes they'll allow you to move up, but they just won't allow you to compete at that ranking for the rest of the year or whatever. So you kind of have to deal with that. So, but one of the reasons they do that is because it makes for the best competitors.
Right.
No
So what are the other ones? What is your other main reasons why you'd recommend that somebody compete as opposed to just being in the gym and training for?
I would say the second one is just like we've talked about, the reality that it brings. Everybody wants to kind of claim where their game is, how good they are. Oh, I can beat up the white belts at my gym. I can beat up the blue belts at my gym.
Hope so.
But your actual skill level compared to people around your school might not be the best school, or maybe you're training at home and you want to see where you stack up. The desire of a man to want to compete and see exactly how he stacks up against
or a woman or a non-binary,
whatever. To see where they stack up against other individuals is kind of like a timeless thing that's been going on forever, and there's very few venues to do that now. Jiu-jitsu, I believe, is one of the greatest to be able to do that. You get to go out there, you get to put on the kimono if gi is your way, tie your belt on that was given to you by an instructor. You've kind of followed in this path of tradition.
It is kind of that cool samurai feeling,
and get to know what that feeling is like to
know where you stack up
at somebody and say it's going to be him or me.
And for it to not just be I'm one of the best at my gym, but you can say, if you compete well, I'm one of the best in the nation or whatever.
And so then on top of that is that for, say, like a school like Devotion, we don't have a huge talent pool. We don't have a bunch of people that we're rolling with. We have instruction coming down from a couple of different belt levels. We get some higher belts in the school to help out our training. But when I can come home and say, I'm the best Master 2 heavyweight purple belt in the world, it says something for your gym, and it inspires confidence in your training
or in the U.S.
And then it inspires confidence in your training partners to say, this is good training. If I'm a blue belt and I can match up with this guy, then I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I might be on my way to my purple belt.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a really big part of it.
Yeah.
Third is, I think, the idea again of this tradition of martial arts and coming to a school and competing for a school or competing. It's like joining a gang. Right? Everybody's gonna say, oh, you're part of our jiu-jitsu family, you're on the mats, you're part of the jiu-jitsu community and stuff.
Yeah.
But and that's what you are. You're part of the families and community of that school. But when you choose to go out there with your school logo on your back and compete in the name of a school, which is under the lineage of certain professors, you're going out there and kind of, doing the samurai thing, and you're participating in a long tradition of martial arts.
This is one of the things about jiu-jitsu that's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I mean, I'm a blue belt. It's like, what the fuck do I know? But one of the things about modern jiu-jitsu, because I've watched a lot of documentaries and talked to a lot of old school guys. I had the opportunity and been lucky enough to talk to a lot of OG guys in the jiu-jitsu game. But modern jiu-jitsu is it's such a limp culture. I mean, it's this very like everybody's a brother worldwide, which is not true. If you go to a competition, like, there's Brazilian guys there, there's Americans there. You can see all these little cliques and everything. There's been fist fights at different, IBJJF.
Yeah, there's some big rivalries out there between like Czech,
but the whole like hippie thing with modern jiu-jitsu, where it lends itself very much to this whole kind of like, every universal brotherhood thing seems to be kind of almost the antithesis of competition in general, where you can respect the people that you're competing against, but anymore these old ideas of creance, if you train at multiple different schools, there's kind of no real stigma attached to that anymore. But I guess there's some part of me, just because of the way that I am and what I'm into, that kind of wishes that I had got into jiu-jitsu during those days. You watch these old school guys talk about dojo storming and everything like that, and you're like, we missed the boat on that one for sure.
And I think they've really kind of almost intentionally taken it out, because I know for me...
Well, for sure, it's good for the sport. It grows the sport more.
And I know for me that when I come in to another school, because I train all over the country and at a bunch of the high-level gyms, and when I come into that school, especially if they allow you to wear a Gracie Baja gi, which most places are pretty cool at if you're dropping in. Some people have their own gis, that they want you to wear while you're there. But you're still representing your game that's been taught to you from your sensei. And for me, I walk in there with the greatest amount of respect for everybody, because I'm there to learn and I'm there to grapple with these guys. But you're also not there to get stomped on, and to have your belt and your team not respected as well. So it's still
you can see these. A lot of guys don't get involved in them at all, and they think they're stupid, But you'll see guys like Keenan Cornelius and Heath Pettigo from the Daisy Fresh team and all that stuff, and Faux Grappling just put out this American Jiu-Jitsu mini documentary thing where you can see the aggression between some of the American guys and some of the Brazilians, and you can see it at some of the IBJJF stuff you go to, where you can see people getting pissed off at each other, and there is a lot of like aggression during some of these matches. And the argument in this American Jiu-Jitsu thing is that the Brazilians call it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but they called it that, they branded it that, and they did that for the same reasons that people are calling it American Jiu-Jitsu now. It's just a branding thing, right? I mean, they learned it from the Japanese. The Brazilians added a lot to it, but when they brought it to America, I mean, the game went crazy when it started to become popular in America. You didn't see any of the same stuff. And it's like they say in that thing, you look at a Brazilian black belt from, the 90s, early 2000s, they had like an impenetrable guard, and then they had really, really, really excellent basics. But when you mixed it with American wrestling and freestyle, then the Brazilians started getting better at wrestling. But they said back at the beginning, they didn't have any wrestling, and so you see this kind kind of American Jiu-Jitsu branding as...
I've certainly seen it.
It seems more to be a chess poke than anything.
It seems more to be... It seems to be true in some instances, but it's certainly something that gets said out there just for the evolution of the game, is that saying like a high level purple belt now would probably smash
like a black belt back then. Keenan Cornelius said that, and everyone lost their mind.
And I've seen it to be a reality at some stages.
But you see it still now. You'll see black belts get smashed by like a really good competition purple belt. It happens, you know.
And I think whether you're talking about American Jiu-Jitsu or not, what we still can say is that at the point it came to America, and at the point that it is now, it's undergone an evolutionary process that was much greater than the process from Japanese to Brazil.
And I mean, I think, you know, you see that kind of thing happen worldwide, because the game, as it starts to come up in one area, the progenitors of it, you know, the Brazilians, they have to learn or die, you know, so they have to stick up with it. And that competitiveness that it creates between who's kind of owning the culture is going to create a lot of you know, step ups in the game's evolution.
And you can name all these American champions and stuff like this, ADCC champions and stuff. You can also say, well, the Brazilians, they're Brazilians, but a lot of them have lived now in America for, you know, 20, 30 years during this whole thing. So maybe they do still have a grip on it. Somebody like Hodger Gracie is in London. You know, and so you
God, how about right now? That's one of the crazy things we were talking about earlier. And right now, there's a lot of people who haven't been able to train at all this year. Like we were talking to a friend in the UK. He hasn't been able to train at all. There's guys that are talking about, you know, they're having to train in secret in like wherever they can with the lights off and shit over the windows and all the rest of this kind of stuff. And it's crazy that's one of the big things that this year changed was I felt really, really, really fortunate to have our own space to train, because obviously we never shut down. And, you know, we're in a pretty small town here that people are pretty relaxed, and they've been pretty relaxed about the whole thing here. But, you know, we never had to put paper up in the windows or anything. But a lot of people are having to train at home. They're not able to train, or they're having to get little groups together. And that's in the U.S. In other countries, it's extreme. It seems very heavy-handed about all that stuff, where they're talking about huge fines that they're handing out.
Well, I've been down in LA for most of this time. And luckily, again, my boss is also my professor, and I also live with him while I'm in LA working and training. And I've been doing that for like the last 2 years. And we have mats at the house. So worst case scenario for me is I'm training with my black belt every night of the week. There have been different shutdowns, stay-at-home orders, and all this sort of thing. So I've been able to make it out to train at some of the other gyms that I normally train at. But there's not a lot of regularity, and you kind of have to know somebody to make sure that you can go in.
But I mean, you know, that was I just put up an article a couple days ago that was kind of about our start with jiu-jitsu, and you know, for us, we started out in an abandoned building with some old wrestling mats that we had got from a school, I think, that they had in storage. And none of us really, I mean, in hindsight, like there was guys there who knew more than other guys, but none of us really knew what we were doing. We didn't train in gis. Nobody owned a gi, I think, except you and maybe Chad. And so, you know, we were doing Gracie University shit off the internet.
That very same gi still sitting on the shelf.
And you know, so for us, that was how we started. And then, you know, there was middle ground there where I was training at a school and stuff like that. But then once I started training here, I never really wanted to go back anywhere else. And so, you know, if you make it a priority, you know, you're going to be able to find a way to train. And I've seen crazy shit on Reddit threads of people turning space like that much space into an area where they can train. There was a period
this summer where we were me and my professor were in hotel rooms.
With
and
like
we went out and got insulation boards and taped it together, and it would just fly all over the place, and you'd spend half the time retaping it.
But just to not get like carpet burn.
But yeah, it was, but it was training, and it was enough, you know, and it didn't take a lot of space. And
I mean, right now too, that's the crazy shit with, you know, you've got Atos online, you have Mendes Brothers, you have so many different things to choose from of all these different online schools and apps, that if you have you and a friend and you want to learn how to do jiu-jitsu and you're somewhere where your shit's closed down, I mean, you do it the same way we've talked about doing everything. You go DIY, you find a park, or you find somewhere, I don't give a shit, go find an abandoned building and throw its heart down in it. You can train jiu-jitsu and grappling. You know, I think, you know, a lot of people have gotten spoiled on, you can go to a school in some big city where you've got, 15 black belts there who are instructing and everything like that. But you might not always have that, and you might not always be in the optimal situation. And I swear to God, I've seen more reasons than ever you always see excuses of why people can't train. But this year it's been fucking insane because everyone's like, well, I can't train.
Well, immediately it came out with like the COVID body, you got out of shape because of COVID, all this shit. And it's like,
I had kids, I got out of shape, I got COVID or, whatever. Yeah. But, so thinking forward, it's one of those interesting things to say, look, if 2021 is going to look a lot like 2020, you got a couple of years of excuses, so you may as well just start eating fucking Chips Ahoy and call it a day. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Or get yourself a kettlebell or get yourself a barbell and move all that bullshit out of your garage that you probably don't need as much as you need a weight set. Your wife will cry a little bit when she gets home real.
But I mean, that's the thing is that the excuses are always going to be there. But you can go bar stars, go to a playground, or go wherever and find a way to train. Pick up a rock, pick up a log, or just go run. There's no reason ever to not do some kind of training.
And I feel like that this is one of those beautiful eras where you're like, okay, everybody's been working out, but maybe a bunch of people got shut down, couldn't go to gyms consistently. Like, this is the time to prove that, like, you're willing to go harder core than anybody. You may not get as big as the guy who did have access to all of those weights in his own garage, but it's like the proving ground of how important it was to you. Are you willing to go out there and make it happen?
It's like we've always talked about, and I was just rereading an older Operation Werewolf article that I'd written called Paper Wolves, and that it's just like that line from The Departed, where he's like, do you want to be a cop or do you want to appear to be a cop? Most guys want to appear to be a cop. And, if you are one of those kind of people who is just doing it to be at the gym, to be seen at the gym or for Instagram or whatever, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't train because you love to train or because you're training for a specific purpose, you're training because it's always better in every area of life to be stronger, more dangerous, the cliche or whatever, but to be harder to kill and all the rest of this kind of stuff. If that's not why you're training and you're training for Instagram or whatever it is, then, whatever.
Change shit.
Yeah, so what's next? Let's see, go ahead and you can check the links out down below here. You'll be able to see the Telegram that I'm running. It's not Instagram, you know what I mean? But it's a spot where you can sign up for and you can check out news and what's going on. I'm doing a weekly email right now called Power Aesthetic. There's a weekly podcast, Power Aesthetic, that's in podcast form, usually about 20 minutes. And Matt and I are going to be doing these when we can, but I think we're also going to start doing these back and forth discussions that are going to be more, the Power Aesthetic stuff is more kind of, bigger picture idea stuff, and it kind of goes into different areas where these are going to be more about physical culture and popular culture, like what's going on in the world and that kind of stuff. And we're going to start doing these, I think, often as a phone call. We haven't decided whether we're going to call that the Cro-Mag call or the Neander call. Write us down suggested names in the comments thread if you want to, and we'll pick the best one, and we'll just start doing that as sort of like a 20 or 30 minute phone call, probably once or twice, a couple times a month, so you guys will be able to keep up with us that way too. As usual, spread this stuff around if you're still fortunate enough to not have been booted from social media, or unfortunate enough, depending on how you want to look at it. Do us a solid, share this around, drop this link to your buddies. And
you can always add in the comments and stuff like that what you'd like to hear us talk about, any subjects that you would prefer to hear us talk about.
Yeah, and we'll cover it. This one was obviously heavily jiu-jitsu related, but I think we're going to get back in and talk about the training methods we've been using and stuff like that lately, as far as what the crew's been up to, what we've been doing, who's been training for what. There's something about a Wolves physique competition in June, so we may be changing focus.
We'll also be looking at just kind of covering a little bit more, like you said, what's going on in the world. We're looking at, going into 2021, which may provide the same or greater obstacles for a lot of things. And I think that this is a great time, as this year was, to just kind of get your mind right and kind of contemplate what that world might look like and how you're going to respond to it. I think everybody is very tentative at this point because they see these drastic changes happening, but they really, a lot of people are still kind of waiting to see if they're going to have to make up their mind. And that's never really the way.
Yeah, don't sit on the fence.
approach
You know, get out and live. And I think you're right. It's an exciting time, and things are changing really rapidly. You know, you can see politics are changing really rapidly. The U.S. is undergoing like this kind of big, crazy shift. And isn't it more exciting to live in uncertain times than it is just to kind of be like, well, everything's good, business is good, you know? So yeah, stay tuned. We'll be dropping another one of these probably while he's here. And like he said, let us know what you want to hear about, and otherwise just train hard and keep at it.